OHC stands for Open Healthcare Network. We're a team of enthusiastic developers and contributors committed to building open technology, especially in the healthcare domain.
The ratio of number of doctors and nurses in India is not comparable to the actual number of people who's required. The more time we are able to save, that's the time they can spend with the patient.
OHC built Care, which is our open source flagship product. We identify hospitals and connect them to the closest care center. The doctors or the specialists get a complete picture of how the patient is doing, and if the doctors feel that they need to be moved, then they have a referral system through the software that tracks the journey of the patient.
I'm not doing the miracles, but I'm just giving some tips of life-sustaining techniques. So that's how driving me and our team more and more.
Early on, we were very fortunate to have active participation from healthcare professionals. They're the ones telling us what to build, how to build.
The engineer showed me how I can contribute on GitHub. I am writing the special issue of I need this button there so that I can have better accessibility of shifting a patient. Within 1 week, I see a link to the finished product. That is when I really saw the magic.
We have more than 400 people contribute from around the world. The developers were very interested. They were like, okay, there is a request from a doctor. We have to go solve it for him. Then they pick up the issue. Then they actually go and build it.
We have seen the quality of code improve immensely with Copilot. So it's almost like everybody's gotten their own personal assistant.
I just have to say what I want in a few comments, and it's able to write out the entire thing for me. It's like another human helping me out. Having everything in open source from day one actually improved the trust.
When OHC came in, suddenly I realized that the small decision I make, the small issue that I file, now it's impacting millions.
This healthcare transformation created a very significant positive impact to every citizen of India.
Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Open Source Friday, back from hiatus. I am with a brand new setup on my office. So if you can see me, if you can hear me, please give me some grace and let me know in the comments because I've shifted things a little bit. That made-up national holiday that happens every year in America during July got me, and I got a new monitor. But anyways, welcome to Open Source Friday. I am super excited to be back. I have missed you all. We are kicking off this, I guess, summer series of Open Source Friday with a super, super amazing and interesting guest. And no, it's not her, although I will be talking about her a little bit later because I think we should do a giveaway today because it's summertime and we're back and we're happy. So, hey, let's do that. Our guest today, I just spent the past like 15 minutes talking to. So literally I looked up and I was like, it's 1 p.m. We have to kick off the show. But we were having really interesting conversations. And I hope that if you've not met him before, if you've not heard this project, that you follow on social and you go by and start these projects and you kind of keep your eyes peeled because he's doing a lot of cool things. So I will not dare try and pronounce his last name. But our guest today is GitHub star, amazing technologist, and also creator and maintainer of open source project ohmyposh.dev, Jan. So Jan is an engineer manager at Nike. Right now, he's leading and coaching high-performance teams of software engineers, delivering amazing solutions. So if you like your Nike web experiences, you know where it's coming from. He's had over a decade of experience in software development, engineering management, and open source software across many, many domains. Super passionate about sharing knowledge. Based on our short conversation, I had not had the pleasure of speaking to Jan personally one-on-one before, but I can tell you he's a champion of open source and definitely gets the value of community, which is like, this is our sauce. Like, this is the home of all those things. So I'm so excited to have him here. He is a Microsoft MVP, a GitHub star, open source maintainers, also enjoys talking and training. And I missed a little bit at the end, but he has a super interesting background, and that he used to do a job that I'm not going to give it away. This is what we're going to do. The first person that guessed what Jan's job used to be before he entered the world of software engineering, I will send this little friend to. And I will give hints. Yeah, let's give hints. Let's do that. So welcome, Jan. Let's go ahead and throw some sparkles. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that we get to have a conversation, but we're going to do more than have a conversation because folks are here. They want to see the demo. For those of you who, thank you for being here and joining. Thank you for coming all the way from Sacramento, Tehran. We have folks joining from the wild Midwest of Germany. All right, Bjorn, I don't know where that is, but it sounds exciting. So all of you who are joining from India and from all places, if you're not familiar with Jan and what Oh My Posh is, I can give you a quick TLDR. It's awesome. And it helps you use your full color set in your terminal. So I'm all about developer tools. I'm all about making things customizable and like what you want them to be and not what they're supposed to be or someone else who created it says they should be. So before we kick off into the demo, Jan, I need to ask, like, why did you make this? Like, I'm familiar with Posh, and most people might be familiar with Posh, but I want to know, like, take us back to when you first decided, you know what, I'm going to invest the time and actually make this thing.
Cool. It's actually an interesting story because it started out as a challenge. I think originally, if I started in IT 12 years ago, quickly started just building applications, open source, which also landed me a job at one point in time as a Windows developer, Windows Phone developer even at the time. So think 2013, 2014, somewhere around that time. So about 10 years ago. So I was the only Windows using developer in an area where everybody either used a Mac or Linux. So obviously everybody laughed at me, say, the developer experience on Windows, 10 years ago. That's just simply ridiculous. You will never have what we have. Just look at my awesome terminal experience and you are a UI developer. We all know the story if you were there at the time. Right? Today, people don't laugh anymore, but that's where we were. So they checked me in a way saying, you will never have this. And I took that personal at that time. I was like, well, I don't believe that that's true necessarily, right? I think we can do something about this. So I set out on a journey figuring out, initially for PowerShell only, how can I solve this? How can I have a cool experience, like a nice, UI experience, just like they have initially. So, Powerline prompts was a start for me, and I tried to do that on Windows, PowerShell specifically, and actually worked. So as I already did everything open source, because I started out in IT thinking that open source was the default way to do things. Later, I found out I was definitely wrong, but I would love to see that evolution still happen because there's so much value in doing that. So I put that out there. I made sure I could publish this as a package so people could just also download it, experience it, and provide feedback. So it started to live its own life. Turns out I wasn't alone. There were other people the same, which is usually the case. You solve something for yourself, and then you find out, hey, there's people who think like me or have the same needs. So there's a lot happened. If we look back in that decade, get feedback, so everything started to grow, and I also grew in a way. So I moved to macOS at one point in time because I was no longer doing Windows development because Windows Phone died a little bit at one point in time. So I was forced to go, somewhere else. And then I felt like, hey, I miss my experience here. I miss this. I miss my own tool. I could use PowerShell cross-platform, that could have worked, but I also started exploring different shells like GNU shell. You encounter Bash, Z shell. There's a lot out there. And what hit me was like, hey, I can't have the same experience everywhere. So I just want to be able to see the same prompt, have the same visualizations, the same contextual information on my screen or in my terminal, regardless of the shell and the platform that I use. So that's when I set out and said, let's evolve this towards something that actually also works cross-platform, which I think started roughly around 6 years ago. And here we are today.
And fast forward to today, it's obviously a very well-established project. You have a lot of fans. I feel like I see people on social talking a lot about Oh My Posh. We have to, for a brief moment, send some huge hug ups to the folks that are experiencing serious difficulties today. We were talking about Windows, and it just would be rude not to. We see you. We know there's someone there that's having a really bad day. So just hug ups to all of you, and thank you for trying to get us back online as soon as we can. So anyway, so I appreciate the fact that you were definitely, I'm looking into this. I don't necessarily need to use it for what I'm doing right now, but I missed that experience. And then you went back to it. And now we fast forward 6 years, and this project is super well established and it's amazing. And I want to see it. So would you mind if we jump in the terminal and you let me share your screen?
No, sure. Let's do that.
Let's do that. And while we get kicked off, I want to scroll through the comments real quick and see. I gave a hint, and I think someone got it right away. Oh, wait, biomedical engineer. What do you think about that, Jan? Biomedical engineering. I like that.
Well, maybe in a different life. I don't think it's not impossible, but not in this life.
Not in this life. All right. Well, I'm loving what I see so far. So let's.
We have a comment. We have a comment above there that says a watchmaker.
Wait. Hang on.
You didn't see it, right?
Up. I'm scrolling back up. Tanke 1075. Is that the one you're seeing?
That's the one I'm seeing. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, hello. Yes, that was it. We have to talk about that. Let's do it when we're closing, though, so we can dive into the demo action now. But Tanke, send me an email, a DM, or anything, so I can send this fella to live with you. Awesome.
It's a really comfortable one. I have the same one. It's amazing. Really, you're going to be happy and stoked to have that one for sure. All right. Do you want me to jump in the terminal or highlight on the watchmaking part just for 5 seconds?
Well, for 5 seconds, please do, because first of all, I haven't met anyone. Well, I never met a watchmaker or anyone that has that experience. But also, when I think of watchmaking, I think of like somebody that's like, I don't know, 70, 80 years old in like a tiny workshop. Like, so when I heard that about you, I was like, wait, really? It's sort of, it's such an incredible art, but one that's,
it's not untrue.
Yeah.
Traditionally, there is some truth to that, idea of a watchmaker for sure. But I started out doing that just by reading an article, and I was like, hey, this sounds super cool. Where can I study this? Where can I do this? And I only did it for, I think, roughly about 5 years. So went to school, did everything, and I was a watchmaker for the Richemont group. If you know Cartier, Montblanc, Panerai, Hierle Coultre. That's what I did back then, which is actually super awesome, right? It's the luxury brands and all these little details. It's amazing to do these things.
Wow.
But unfortunately, it's also a very traditional environment. So that's why I decided to move to IT. But the thing is, and this is interesting, and I guess that goes for anyone who's doubting on whether or not should I transition to IT or not. Maybe you want to, go in that direction, but you're not sure if that's something for you. As a watchmaker, I learned to look for the actual issue rather than patch or an issue with another issue. So all of a sudden you have 2 bugs in your watch, but they alleviate one another. So everything seems to work good. Okay. From looking at it from the outside in. And in software engineering, you have the same thing. So when it comes to the thought process that I had as a watchmaker, I felt very familiar moving into IT saying, hey, different form factor, same principles, same workflows apply as far as how do I deal with this situation and this problem. So that was a very cool insight for me to have. And it turns out, I think in a lot of areas, there are similarities. So you can just transition and say, I've been there before. It looks different, but it's the same thing. So let's just go. So never be afraid to, take that leap. Just go for it, because not everything will be strange. That
is such incredible insight, because that is 2 careers that you would think are completely polar opposites, and the relation is there. I love what you said. You can just patch it. We can have another. We're gonna have another interview because we can talk about just patching things and
for
things.
Sure.
And definitely with a fine piece of what a timepiece, like you can do that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can arrange something so at least we can shine while we're shining. That would be cool.
I
right.
love it. I love it.
Okay,
All
let's
right.
go into the demo. So what you can see here, this is plain terminal. So I'm working on Windows right now. This is Windows terminal, and it has a plain like vanilla PowerShell. This is what you get out of the box. If you were to just start it, this is what you get. So you can see you have that prompt, which is this indication here. So it says PowerShell and then the folder that I'm in, which is nice. But what Oh My Posh can do, and if you go to the website ohmyposh.dev, you follow the installation guide, and then what you have Oh My Posh installed on your system, how can you benefit from it? Now, the easy thing is if you just copy paste a one-liner for PowerShell, I just did that now. This is the one. And I press enter. Oh My Posh will load everything for you, right? You don't need to do anything. This is what you get out of the box by default. So you can see my username. You can see the tilde, which is an alias for being in my home folder. Immediately I get, if I hovered it, you can't see it on the screen, but you also get clickable hyperlinks. So you can open Explorer straight from your terminal if you want to do that without having to, just, okay, I'm going to Explorer, find the same location that I'm at. It's all integrated. And then the blue one with the check mark is my latest status code. So whether or not the last command that I typed, was that okay or not? So if I were to type something that doesn't really exist, it will try to run that, and it becomes red and it gets across. You see, oh, something went wrong as well. So it's fully integrated with, in this case, PowerShell. You can see indications on the left saying I'm in PowerShell and the time. But the interesting part here is that configuration is entirely driven by JSON, YAML, or TOML files. So you can extend it as you want. You can add any context that you want, and there's a lot of things you can add to this based on what you need. Maybe you want the Node.js version to be displayed there. Maybe you want some Kubernetes context. There's tons of extensions or segments, as we call them, that you can configure so that it actually shows what you want. Because if I were to now navigate to, let's go to Oh My Posh itself. Alia is not for now. Let's go here. You can see that it shows my Git information straight from my prompt, so I don't need to type Git status anymore. Everything is just there. And these are just the basics. So you can go a long way. Now, the cool thing is, this is PowerShell, but this is, for example, GNU Shell running on Windows. It has the exact same prompt, same look and feel. For Bash, which in this case is Git Bash, exactly the same, so no difference there. And then I have my Bash on WSL, which is actually running Linux under the hood, also has the same prompt. So no matter where I go, it always feels familiar. So I always have the same experience. And you, as a user, you don't need to know the nitty-gritty details of every shell that is in the past before. And that's, I think, the main reason why I went in this direction with Oh My Posh, is because as software engineers, or anyone who wants to play around in the terminal, regardless of how you identify yourself or what your profession is, you have a different task that you want to do. And maybe you don't necessarily want to get sidetracked by how do I make this experience as tailored and beautiful as I can. And that's where Oh My Posh comes into play. So it can do all of that for you. You don't need to know all the details. It will bootstrap all of that and handle all the magic just for you. We will try to optimize this as much as we can everywhere, obviously. But that's the whole idea. You worry about what you want to see, where and when and how you want to see it, and we do everything else.
That is amazing. Let me pause right there. For the folks who are already using Oh My Posh, I love to hear your comments in the comments. So go ahead and drop us a comment if you're using it. Loving that right off the box, you already get a lot. But there's also a lot of customizations, obviously, you can do yourself. And then you have out-of-the-box themes as well.
Yes.
I don't know if we can look through those a little bit, or I'm going to let you continue with the flow as you want it.
And yeah, we could definitely have a look. And then I'm probably going to share my my browser for you. Let's see if we can go.
This is awesome. And hey, learner, thank you for using. We have someone in the audience who's using it. Hey, shout outs if you are having a contributor or if you're part of this community, which we need to talk about all those things as well later. But I wanna let's cover this amazing project first.
Cool. think I also shared my screen if you would be so kind to put it
Beautiful.
on. There we go. See, so this is where I just was. I mentioned I copy pasted that one-liner for
That's
PowerShell.
it.
You can find it here. So the way this goes, if you want to use it, you go to installation, you choose your operating system. So in this case, I'm on Windows. You get different ways to install this. Choose whatever is best suited for you. You can get it from the store. We have Winget, Scoop. You can manually install it, Chocolatey, whatever. And the same goes for macOS and Linux. So take what you want. Important note, if you want to have all these nice looking icons in your terminal, you will need a specific font. So there is a project called Nerd Fonts, which uses popular programming fonts and then patches them with all of the nice icons that you can have, like, maybe Kubernetes icon, a GitHub icon is also there, a Git icon, anything that you might think of is actually there. There's a lot of different types of fonts. Oh My Posh has a command to help you install this. You can see this. It's just Oh My Posh font install, and you can select the one you want, and it will do everything for you as well. So no
So
need
simple.
to know how do I install a font on my machine. Doesn't matter anymore. You can just run that command. And then in the prompt part, what I showed earlier, what I did, at least I went to PowerShell. It explains you where you need to add this, so you can follow along, even if you're not that familiar with PowerShell itself. And then you can just copy paste the right things straight from here and be on your way. The cool thing, you mentioned it as well, is teams. So what our teams are actually predefined configurations. So people who had an idea on how they want their prop to look like. So they also contributed to the project, and you can choose to use them straight out of the box, or maybe just copy paste them and tweak to your own liking. But it has a really good foundation of everything that is possible. So here you will see the flexibility of Oh My Posh. So you can go from straight. I have no real background, just text with colors. You can position everything where you want it. But you can go pretty extreme, as you will see.
I like that.
And I'm not judging anyone. You can keep it simple. You can make it as crazy as you want to. It's it needs to be good for you, and it needs to suit your needs. But here's a lot of inspiration you can use. If you just scroll through them, like everything that people built with a lot of different context, like Devious Diamonds here, for example, you can see that is a lot of information. But maybe you really need it, maybe you want it at that time. So these things are all possible. So those are themes which originated. I think the idea came from All My ZSH, because they also had predefined teams. I think we even have Robbie Russell in here. Shout out to Robbie.
Oh, no way. Shout out to Robbie Russell. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we have to do that. I mean, without Robbie, this wouldn't be here. We have to be honest about that. So he laid that foundation.
Bravo.
All right. So kudos to him. And if you're curious and understand, okay, what can be done, there's a lot that can be done, like really a lot, so much that even sometimes I forget that we already have this. It happens that I start working on issues only to realize 10 minutes later, like, wait, we actually already have this, but I completely forgot.
That
so
is awesome.
we have the configuration guides where you can see how can I enable something, how can I do this. And you have the segments, which I guess is the most important part. And shout out to one of the users who suggested to split these into categories as well. Before that was a flat list, like I think even a week ago. But you can find, and it makes so much sense to do it like this. But I never, as when you're developing something, it's not the same as being an actual user, right? I have so much experience with all of these things, so I find my way more easily than others do. So this type of feedback is crucial to make it accessible for everybody, because you might look at things differently. We are all different, and this is a globally used project, so that input is super valuable. So maybe you want to show some information around your cloud setup. So we have all of them there. Command line tooling as well. There's a lot of command line tooling.
There is a lot
available. Programming languages, context that you want to see, which we also have a lot, but we can still do more. So those contributions are always welcome. So that's in a nutshell what Oh My Posh is, what it does, what it could mean to you. So feel free to give it a go.
What language is Oh My Posh developing?
Golang.
It's Golang. All right. Very cool. But I guess obviously you don't necessarily have to be a Golang developer in order to contribute.
No, I think one of the reasons I went for Golang is to have a low barrier to allow contributions, because if you look at cross-platform languages, like actual cross-platform languages, my choice was between Go and Rust at the time. But coming from .NET, where Oh My Posh really originated from, I found that Rust, while being very powerful and interesting as well, it's a steep learning curve for a lot of people. So I consciously went for Go because I feel like it is more accessible for everybody to contribute. It's more readable. There's a little less, there is magic, obviously, but it's more straightforward than, here's a Rust project and try to get your head around that. So that was a deliberate decision.
I appreciate that as someone who's tried to learn Rust and is still trying to learn Rust.
It's all possible. The main question is that your day-to-day job, or and if it's
I don't
not,
love it like that.
That's how I look at these things, and that's where my decisions come from. Like, how accessible is this project? And I think programming language setup, everything contributes to that.
Absolutely. Let me see real quick. Let's take a moment to look through the comments and see if there are any questions that come in. And folks, if you are an active user of Oh My Posh, and you have a question, this is your time. Like, when will you ever get this kind of one-on-one? Or if you just installing it today, like, of course, we're going to share how you can contribute if you get super into it. Shout out to the current users are posting, Ravi, and then Andre, who is installing it right now on his Mac. So that's so cool. You have to come back and tell us how it went. Let me take a quick look. There was a question from James Southman, and Jan, if you see anything that's popping up that you like to touch on, by all means.
Yeah, I was reading through them.
Something about teamworks, and what kind of support for remote detaching, like screen teamworks, please?
I think it should work. We did see some issues in screen previously. I would love to have people provide that feedback more. So theoretically, that should all be supported, because in the end, under the hood, all it does is add a string, because that's what Oh My Posh generates, a string to your prompt variable in your shell, right? If you make it very simplistic. So that should work everywhere, regardless of, whatever context you're using a shell in. So theoretically, yes, but I know there are side effects. So let me know.
Perfect. So listen, James, go and give it a go. Go and try it out, and then come back and let us know. Let's see. This question, I don't know if it's AWS instances and Azure virtual machines. I think that's a different show. But let's go back to what we're looking at now. So right now, obviously, I want to drop the link to the repo, because folks, in this show, we give stars, and we need to do that now. So besides downloads and everything else, we're going to go ahead and do that. So while I'm fetching this, is there anything else from the documentation you want to show us, or can we start talking about how we can contribute and get more involved for the folks that are watching and are sold? They're like, I want to be a part of this.
Let's talk about contributions. That's a good idea. Yeah, definitely. Shall I show the way?
I would love that, and that would be fantastic. And can I have V-Shell and Oh My Posh installed at the same time? Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Yeah, that's all possible. Check. Let me up. Okay.
That's the beauty of this project.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we have one open bug, or at least something to figure out when using Oh My Sensitization combination with Oh My Posh. But there's just one. We're figuring it out at the moment. We're going to solve it for sure. But for the main use case, it's perfectly compatible. All right. So contributions. What do you need to know? So obviously, the project is hosted on GitHub. So we have that. It's under my name. That is, I know, sometimes hard to pronounce, but it's there for a reason.
It's my ignorance.
It's perfectly normal. No hard feelings whatsoever. So what can you do? People and I think this is something I want to mention. You don't necessarily need to do code contributions when we talk about contributions. Raising an issue on GitHub when you experience something that you didn't really expect, even if it's about the user experience and onboarding experience, whatever the context, is useful. because that just allows us to figure out, okay, what is going on here? Can we improve that? Is it documentation, whatnot? So the first thing you would do, if you go to the issues tab, you say, okay, I want to open something. You can press new issue here, and we have a selection that you can use. It's either bug report, documentation, maybe enhancement. There is a feature, but maybe you think it can be improved, or there's something that you really miss, so you can add a feature request. That's also all there, and we have the links to our FAQ, the docs, and Q&A as well, which we use discussions for. So you can choose to create an issue or start a discussion. If I feel like, okay, this is more a discussion, I will migrate it for you. So don't worry about any of that. I will, I'm always happy when we get some feedback. When you look at the project itself, the way it's set up, if you do want to contribute, there's a few things you can do. Obviously, you can just fork it and develop on your own. We do also offer a dev container to facilitate in the development that has all the tooling installed for you. So the right Go runtime, it has all the shells, or at least a lot of shells that we mainly test on, that we feel like these are primary shells that always should work, are included as well. So you can easily see whether your changes work on PowerShell, Fish shell, new shell, etc. That's all embedded. So that's an easier way to get started without worrying about how do I set up my machine. Something we added, I think not that long ago. So winget now offers a command called winget configure. So if you're on Windows and you want to install everything you need to do local Oh My Posh development, so by installing the tools on your machine, you can go clone the repository, make sure it's local, and you can do winget configure, run this configuration, this one specifically. Oh, typing on the wrong tab here. Let me see how I can. Okay, there we go. Let me open this one. It will install Visual Studio Code if you don't have it already. Install Golang CI lint, and Node.js to make sure you can visualize the website. So that's all there. So all of these things we have at your disposal just to get started. And if any of these would be challenging or you don't figure out, let us know, because then we can probably update the documentation, which we also have. So we have a getting started guide for development on the website as well, if you want to create your own segment. So if you could do a feature request, or you could build your own and then just contribute back. It's all the steps are listed there, so you should be able to follow along. And I'm always there to help out in case. So if you feel like I'm stuck, please create a PR. Let me know that you're stuck at what you want to achieve, and I will work with you to make sure we can make that happen.
I love this path to contribution. Big fan of the setting up these environments and developing containers so that you don't have to worry about you're already telling me and giving me anything I need to get kicked off and just get right to the contribution. So that is awesome. And you do have a community behind the project, obviously.
Yes.
I've seen folks share that they use it, they love it. Thank you, meow. Thanks for creating it, they say. And there is also a Discord server, right, where folks can join in. And I'm going to share a shortened link to the invitation to that Discord server. So if you folks decide that you want to start contributing or you just want to go check it out, you can join that. And I take it you probably hang out those parts as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. We do have a question from Bjorn. Let's see if we can take a look at that quickly, and then we can finish adding up our contributions. In the wrap terminal, you can ask an AI to generate a command given a prompt. For example, how I revert my current branch to main, it will generate the command. You can customize it. Talking a little bit of something about like GitHub Copilot on CLI.
Yeah, check.
Maybe.
Yeah, Warp added that. That's never going to be the goal of Oh My Posh. Oh My Posh adopts the Unix philosophy, as in, you do one thing and you do it right. And don't try to do everything at once, because I tried that initially. I think I went down the ohmyposh path and tried to do everything, but you soon realize that you, as a human, my head is only this big. It's impossible. So this project, if you look at the size of it, it's already pretty huge in terms of what it can do. So that will never happen in Oh My Posh. Maybe we can, I don't mind creating another tool that then focuses on that, but that's never going to be the intent. Plus, I do feel that's more like a terminal functionality, which Warp does really well. I mean, shout out to Warp that they're trying to revolutionize terminal experiences,
sure.
which I mean, we have to acknowledge that is pretty cool what they're trying to figure out, like, you know, what's the next iteration of a terminal. But that'll never be Oh My Posh.
Thank you for the transparency. I super appreciate that. Before we move on a little bit about the contributions, I wanted to ask you if there is like any, I don't know, have you seen, because I love when you were showing the different themes and you show us obviously what comes out of the box. Like, have you seen one, whether it be a theme or like just an unexpected way that someone is using it that is kind of like, that's not, I don't know if that's something that maybe you have a think about it.
Yeah, I do. There's definitely been use cases for us like, whoa, I didn't know that was a thing. And I think the most, I know. The first thing is, shout out to Scott Hanselman, who we coded a segment together to show his blood sugar level in his prompt, which for me was insanely cool to do. So he had this idea, you know, he has this there's a platform called Night Scout. It's also an open source project. So you can hook up your blood sugar meter, or I don't know how to call it, to that instance.
Yeah.
And then it will, you know, you will be able to, via API, get your blood sugar level and all the details, your sugar blood. Anyhow. And he said, I want to see that in my prompts because Oh My Posh has the ability to contextually change the colors of segments and the prompt itself. So we could show, like, if it goes below this value, make my prompt red or orange, you know, so I'm aware that while I'm in the zone coding that I have to do something. That was pretty cool. But a second one, and that's the one where it's like, whoa, is we have a segment called Brewfather. And Brewfather is also a platform, but for brewing beer. So you can track your brewing status in your prompt the whole time. And that was pretty exotic as a use case for me because I would have never expected that to come in or that contribution to flow. Like, what? Okay, cool. Let me help you out. Let's make this a reality.
I am speechless. Like, the sky is the limit, quite literally. You know, I'm very familiar with Scott. He's a fantastic human being, and the great challenges of, you know, being a diabetic person. That's literally your life or death. And when you are in flow, something needs to come beeping at you, and the ability to qualify that and have that visual reminder, that's unbelievable. That is like just absolutely mind blowing. As much as seeing how, I don't know, yeasty my beer is, see where the beer is in the brew process. That is fantastic. How does that work? When it's calling out information like that, like from an outside service, like just a little bit. Can you talk us through that a bit?
Yeah. Well, as long as it is as an API or a command line interface, we can just interact with it. So that's the cool thing is that there's so many examples now in the code base that if you have this use case, you can easily look something up. We also do internal caching of this information because, you know, if you're working hard in your terminal, you press enter and we have to fetch all that information all the time. That's going to be rather costly, and you're going to wait on your prompt to render because these things do have an impact. You know, we can be only as fast as we can get information from the sources that we are linked to or that you configured. So that we also have in place. But if that data is out there, they have an API, we can do it. I mean, I have Strava integrated in my prompt so that I can nudge myself to go for another, you know, either run or swim because it was maybe, you know, 2 days ago. So it will turn red and my prompt will tell me you have to go run again. So all of these things are possible. Basically, the sky's the limit. If you can get the information, you can display it.
I love this. I most recently had a very sad experience of losing the Copa America to Argentina. Shout out to all Argentinian people. I love you. You're cool. Whatever. I'm still salty. But I was thinking about that because I was actually doing something different, not for work, but for like another thing that's just a personal thing. And I'm like, that would be cool if I could have seen it there without having to leave what I'm doing.
We have that for NBA.
Oh, no way.
MBA.
That's so cool.
We have an MBA segment. I think we even have a women MBA segment as well, specifically. Yeah, it's all there. Someone that contributed this. I want to look at my MBA scores. I want to follow them in my prompt. It's like, oh, yeah, let's do it. No.
This is fantastic. The versatility, and thank you for sticking to that philosophy. A lot of folks forget that. Like, this is working beautifully, is serving the purpose that it was intended to. And I love that. Do one thing, do it well, do it excellent. That is nothing against multiple projects doing multiple things, but I think we end up suffering. I know we end up suffering when we try and do too much. So that's fantastic. I want us to talk before. So now folks know how to contribute. They have the repo. Please, folks, I'm going to keep an eye. Let's keep the stars coming. And then also there is a way that you can contribute if there isn't if it isn't time or code, you can contribute by sponsoring Jan on GitHub so that he can continue to do this amazing work. Thank you to all of you who can do that. These things are always, anything helps. Anything and everything helps. And I do feel like it's a way that you can really, be just grateful. If you're able to, definitely take a look and drop a sponsorship for Jan. Please do that. But I wanted to ask you also, we shared before I start talking about something else, because I don't want to run out of time before we talk about this other cool thing that you just built, because it's another really cool thing. For folks who are joining the Discord server, let me know if you're having issues with that link or anything at all. It's just an abbreviation of a long Discord. I will share the long one here. I was just trying to make it easy for folks who are like watching this on their phones. But please join the Discord server. Please create more segments. Please make one for soccer scores so I don't have to do it. And please sponsor Jan if you're able to. Let's talk about the other thing, because I have to. You have to show us this, because we're talking about versatility and making it easy for you to jump into doing the thing that you want to do. And this other thing is just on that.
Okay, so I'll start with the problem statement. So, and this comes from what I do, and based on all the work that I do for Oh My Posh. So my reality is I switch between operating systems quite often. So I go from Windows to Mac to Linux, back and forth. And additionally, obviously, I use a lot of different shells to test or play around and whatnot, which at work is also a use case for me, because I have my main shell that I like to use, which is GNU shell nowadays. But I also still have a lot of bash scripts sometimes that I play with or interact with, maybe some Z shell stuff. Maybe I want to use fish somewhere else. So those use cases apply. Now, one of the challenges that you have is if you want to set these up right, usually you resort to a .file manager to bootstrap everything for you and allow to easily share configuration cross-platform, maybe mostly cross-platform, but cross-shell. If you easily want to share the same config from one shell to the other, there's not really a tool out there that can facilitate that. And specifically, if I don't want to know all the details of, how do I configure an environment variable in the shell? How do I configure my pod in this shell? But I just want to add all the entries to my pod. Maybe I want to configure all these environment variables, whatever the use case. So what I did is I said, well, .file managers, super powerful, but I need to know all the details. And honestly, I don't have time for that. So can't I make something easier with the same philosophy of Oh My Posh, like, just a one-liner, initialize something and it will just do all the magic for me, and I don't need to know it. So I went out and I created alii.dev, because it started out as my idea initially was, let's have a tool that allows me to have the same aliases cross shell. So obviously multiple aliases is alii. So that's what I named it. But it quickly became, hey, I also have path entries. I also have maybe scripts I want to share. There's so many use cases, and maybe I can make that a lot easier. So if let me see if I can share my screen here for the project. There we go. So alii was born. It's a cross-platform shell management in a nutshell. Follows the same principle. Obviously uses the same layout a little bit as Oh My Posh, because reusability is key in my world to be able to do everything. But you get You install it. Same, I think same methods apply as Oh My Posh. And then to configure, you also have just a one-liner that allows you, or at least you have one file. In this case, it's a YAML file that allows you to, just specify an alias. So in this case, A needs to point to ALAI. Hello world needs to be a function. So you can also define functions without needing to know all the details. ALAI will do all that for you. You use Bash, ZSH, PowerShell, NuShell, nobody cares. But ALAI will. You can identify your path entries, split, also do conditional. So say, maybe I only want this on my Mac. So, okay, fine. Let's only do it there, and everything else can flow everywhere. It allows for templating, so you don't need to know all the details. So you don't need to repeat yourself, and it will just work out of the box everywhere. And you can also even add scripts. So if you say, hey, I still have this use case of adding specific, shell-specific scripts I want to load them into my shell when I start, you can still do that. It all works. Also work with conditionals and whatnot. So you can see that was added. So that's what ALAI does. And I've been using it also in combination with Oh My Posh. So you can see this in the example. So it actually bootstraps Oh My Posh for me.
Amazing.
So I only have a one-liner in every shell here that I use, which is I initialize ALAI, and ALAI initializes everything else for me out of the box. And for me, it's just copy pasting. So I can also point it to a remote configuration. So I just simply copy paste the same entry all the time in any shell that I use, and in any RC file or however you would configure your shell. So that's the only thing you need to know, and it will handle everything for you. And for me, it's worked magically because I save so much time, moving from one device to the other or changing my device. I add this and it's there. It can add hit aliases for you as well, do git configuration, all of these things, because that's mainly the pain point. You're used to typing, so you have this in your head, okay, this is what I want to type, and then it's not available because it didn't set this up yet. Well, that problem is gone now.
That's fantastic. I love it. You just launched this, or has it been out for a while? Have you shared this with maintainers? I would think this is like a maintainer's dream scenario. Especially if you're a maintainer, maintaining your project is not your full-time job, and you got other things that you got to do, to skip the pains. That's incredible.
So the idea is always, how can I get to what I need to do as fast as I can and have the same amazing experience everywhere I go, just like that. That's the idea. And I'm about to share that with the GitHub stars as well, because I didn't do that yet. I also realized, why didn't I do this yet? But yeah, okay. You're building stuff. Oh My Posh takes up so much of my time. And this just came alongside at one point in time. I was like, I'm going to build this. It needs to be done. Someone needs to do it, because there is no alternative today. And if you're heavily invested into dot files and that's your thing, that's perfectly fine. I mean, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there like me who feel like, I don't want to invest so much time in that, and to give me something simple, straightforward, and I don't need to know the details. Just make it work.
One line, and it works. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Definitely keep this project in your radar, folks, because I think this can make your life a lot easier. I'm gonna get in there. Thank you for sharing it here. I feel like super privileged because we've seen it before the stars did. So I feel like we got special treatment here at Open Source Friday, Jan. Thank you so much. We've covered a ton of things. Thank you for being so generous with sharing also your new project. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Because I have one question about the future, your vision, like what you're thinking for the horizon of Oh My Posh. But is there anything else, and then we'll also ask for a piece of advice before we close, because you have just such a great breadth of knowledge and attitude towards this. I just love it. I feel like there'll be some wisdom, folks. So don't leave.
Maybe the thing I would love to share, which might also be advice, is, go and explore open source. And it doesn't necessarily need to be, I'm going to invent this crazy popular project. Projects don't become popular because you want to breed them that way. That just sort of happens. So look at your passions, pursue them. Don't be afraid. Try to take a little leap of faith. Look for maybe easier entryways. There's a lot, there's a lot for first-time contributors. Even if it's just bringing ideas to the table, super valuable. Be vocal about it. Try to engage in the conversation. Maybe that offers you the possibility, or you find a mentor that will help you. Take your first steps into actually doing some open source coding contribution, but just take that leap of faith. Because for me, doing that, and I didn't realize that at the time, but now when I'm able to look back like a decade, open source built my career. Right? I didn't get rich from doing. I will never get rich from Oh My Posh. It will only take. That has never been the goal. It would be nice for sure. I would be lying if I would state otherwise. But it's never been the goal. But I learned so much doing this that I would have never been able to learn in a day-to-day 9-to-5 job. You learn, and that's just the way things go. You learn a lot of bad habits 9-to-5 in companies, because there's so much push on innovation, product delivery, whatnot. But if you're able to do this at your own pace, learn, iterate, innovate, you can also put that into practice in your day job, and you will become a lot better in dealing with all of that stress, all of these, all this push, etc., because you've become a lot more efficient. You know how to deal with these things. You might have found different ways. So take that leap of faith, go do it, and it will help you immensely.
Folks, you have to listen to this advice, because that's the advice right there. That's the advice. Take the leap of faith. Just start. Honestly, it is it's transformational. And being a little selfish, do it for yourself. You do it for you. Find the thing that it is that is interesting to you. I'm not that passionate about Copa America to go make a segment for Oh My Posh. I'm sorry. But if one of y'all wants to do it, that'll be great. But find the thing that you're passionate about, and that itch, and scratch it, and definitely lessons learned. Best case scenario, you fall into maintainership like most people do, and you stay there and you learn and you grow, and it's a beautiful place to be. Worst case scenario, you spend time learning something new and you scratch that itch. So definitely just go for it. Yeah, and that is fantastic. Thank you for that piece of advice. We can follow you on X. So folks, go ahead and give a follow on X, please. I hope to see lots and lots of stars coming down onto both projects. Before we leave, I want to ask you, where potentially would you like folks to contribute? I know feedback is huge to you. So what do you think that is something that folks can do to help right now, besides sponsoring? Click on that button too.
I think the documentation layout is something I've always been struggling with, because you approach it in a biased way, right? You start documenting based on the gaps that you are aware of, but not the gaps that you are not aware of. So when it comes to onboarding and intuitive, I find my way in this documentation. There's a lot of different people out there. So that is definitely something where I'm looking for, just ideas, or like silly things like, hey, can we make these segments also contextually grouped? It's so straightforward, but I never thought of it, right?
And
when
it
you
looks
do it,
beautiful.
you're like, it looks pretty, it makes so much sense. But I never had that idea myself, or that need myself. So I think when it comes to that, making the project really accessible for everybody, it's always been a goal. And I feel like in onboarding and finding the right information, I can still do a better job.
Okay, folks, so go take it for a spin. Take a look through the Getting Started documentation. This is the only experience in developer in the world, really, where hindsight is a disadvantage, because you can come in and do it, and you miss the things that like someone with fresh eyes will come in and experience for the first time. So that's super valuable. Whether you're into documentation or not, if you're actually wanting to try the project yourself, if you notice something that could have been clearer, or I love the fact that someone contributed that the layout to the documentation, and that, like, I love that. Like, it looks like it's always been like that. It looks like it always should have been like that. So that's perfect. Definitely come in and be a part of that. So thank you so much, Jan. This has been such a fun Open Source Friday. I appreciate your time a lot. You have to come back. Maybe we'll come back and demo Elia at some point. A little later in the game. That'll be super fun.
Sure.
Folks, for those of you who are today installing Oh My Posh, like, let us know. Let us know on social. Please tag us, do like a hashtag Open Source Friday. If you install Oh My Posh today, I do go back and look at those things, and I do send stickers and stuff to the folks to do it. So help me do it. It's not anti-promises. The folks who guess this baby's coming home to you, I'll be waiting your DM. Jan, what's coming up for you? Are you going to any talks coming up? Anything you like to promote other than these two amazing projects?
I've been so busy trying to answer all the questions, figuring out, what's next. I would love to do some more talks at conferences, around sustainable software engineering. That's for sure on my horizon at one point in time. I feel like there's still a lot of insights people could benefit from. Other than that, I'll keep on building on these two tools. That's what I aim for. I want to really, get that foundation, which I think it's already there, but it can still be improved. I want to see how far that can be pushed.
Thank you for that. And listen, if you're watching this and you're organizing a conference and you want an amazing person to come to talk to you about engineering practices and sustainability, let Jan know, please. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Everyone on the chat, you've been awesome. And Bruno, thank you for being here. Folks, James, Krishna, Bjorn, thank you. To all of you who are actually downloading and using the tool today. You're awesome. That's the whole point of this show. We want to introduce things that maybe you didn't know existed. And if you do know existed, for you to go in and be a part of them and actually help improve and grow. So, Jan, you're the best. Thank you so much. I hope to see you again soon in another Open Source Friday. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Thank you, folks, for being here today. All of you who joined, I've missed you. I've missed my Open Source Friday gang. I'm going to be taking a look at the repo later, and I have full confidence that we're going to have a just full of stars. This is such an amazing project, and I love this type of developer tools that just make your life easy, and in a way that is simple. Key things that Jan mentioned, I don't need to know the details. I just want to get to work. So that's amazing. Thank you for making our life easier. Thank you for being a part of Open Source Fridays. If you are an open source maintainer, or you have a project that you would like to see in Open Source Friday, please send me a DM on Twitter, @ColombiaDev. I'll post it here. With my wonderful colleague, Kadesha Akhter, we are actually starting to schedule the month of November. So I know we have some folks that are still waiting on answers, but please keep sending those projects our way. And again, this is a very open show, and we like to talk about a little bit of everything. So thank you for all of you who actually have volunteered your time to be here and show us what you're building. We'll see you next time on the next Open Source Friday. I think next week it will be my amazing colleague. I, top of mind, don't know the project, but I will share it via social later so that you folks can be sure to be here. Appreciate you all. Thank you for being a part of Open Source Friday. See you next time.